I'll have the pleasure to introduce Breixo, that is gonna show us some details of the new standard about EPD, so the 15804 of 2011, and possibly talk to some details and how we can bring a discussion forward to define PCRs for asphalt mixture. So without further ado, Breixo, I'll give you the virtual stage.
Thank you very much, Davide, and welcome everybody again to this day 2 of the webinar. I will try to share my screen now. Hopefully you can see it. Davide, can you tell me if now you're seeing full screen? 1 second. Yes, you should be able to see it now, right?
Now, yes, ready to go.
Very good. So thank you, everybody. I'm honored of starting this day 2 today. I will say that if yesterday we talked more about the state of art, the current situation, the current framework, the theory behind the LCA and the sustainability assessment, the EPDs and all this. Today we will see more things that are not completed yet, things that still are ongoing and that we will need to complete in the near future. One of these things is to finalize and to get approved the product category rules, the PCR, for the EPDs, for the declaration of environmental impacts of asphalt mixtures at European level. We saw actually yesterday that this can have many advantages, many benefits, but the truth is that we don't have one yet. We don't have these European rules, this common standard for Europe. So I will explain in my presentation why we don't have this yet. So this lady here is Ursula von der Leyen. She's the president, or she became president of the European Commission a bit more than 1 year ago. And one of the very first things that she did, it was the publication of the document called the European Green Deal, which is a very important document and which was just a few months later, it was even further developed with the publication of the new Circular Economy Action Plan. So these documents are very, very important because they're integral part of the strategy to implement the United Nations 2030 agenda. So they're at the highest level of hierarchy in terms of European policy. It is also, they also establish the most ambitious objectives in history in terms of sustainability. Just to put an example, one of the objectives is that Europe becomes the first carbon neutral continent by 2050. In particular, the action will focus on resource intensive sectors such as textile, construction, electronics, and plastics. So construction is mentioned explicitly there. Support, it gives also great support to circular design, circular economy in general, even prioritizing reducing and reusing materials even before recycling them. So for the European Union, recycling is not even the best or the first option anymore. And finally, they mentioned that reliable, comparable, and verifiable information will play a very important role in all this system. So if we have 3 things that we need to extract, 3 thoughts from all this context, is that first of all, the EU wants producers, they want us to be more sustainable. And this is out of any doubt, and this is very clear. If we have to be more sustainable, one thing that becomes necessary is that we need to declare how sustainable we are. We need to be able to declare our impacts when we produce something. And this is going to be done through the environmental product declarations, the EPD. But the third thing is that circular economy, as we have seen, is a priority now in Europe. So when we do this declaration of impacts, it's not going to be enough anymore, just the declaration of the manufacturing stage. We will have to declare impacts during the whole life cycle, including the end of life and what I can do with the material even beyond there. When I extract, for example, the mix from the road, what can I do later on with it? Can I recycle in a different sector? Can I reuse it to make more asphalt? So all these kind of things now will be necessary to be declared. This is important to keep in mind because then I will present the difficulties we have create the standard with the specific the category rules for asphalt mixtures, and we will see that a lot of things that some people are complaining about, and they actually come from these documents and from the highest policy in Europe. I show here in this hierarchy of the system, let's say that in the basis, in the bottom, we have the environmental product declaration, the EPDs that should be provided by the manufacturers. So in order to make sure that we all declared the same impacts and in the same way, we need some rules for that. So this is for the case of asphalt, we will have product category rules for asphalt mixes. This is the document that is being drafted. That's the objective that we have, but has not been approved yet. Whatever we put in this document, which is specific for asphalt mixtures, it will have to be in compliance with the documents that we have at the highest level. Specifically, the standard 15804, we have now the second amendment since last year, and this is the core rules for the EPDs of any construction products. So this is from windows to bricks, concrete, and of course asphalt as well. So whatever we put, this is very important because a lot of things that we put in the standard specific for asphalt mixtures come actually directly, or they are given already by the standard 15804. So if this standard, if this framework, the core rules are so important, I'm going to present now a couple of things that are creating most of the problems, I would say, or most of the barriers to get the PCR for asphalt mix approved. The first thing is this table, and I think we have seen it already a couple of times yesterday. So this table is in the standard 15804, and what we can see is in columns the different impacts that we can or we have to declare in different stages of the life cycle. So we can see, for example, the product stage, we will have modules A1 to A3, then we will go to the construction, then we have the use stage is modules B, B1 to B7, module C, C1 to C4 is the end of life, and as I mentioned before, then we have module D, where we are going to declare what I can do with the material even after the end of the service life, once I extract it from the road. Now, this standard gives us three possibilities for asphalt. On types of environmental product declarations, or what is the possibilities that what modules should be or has to be mandatorily declared. What I want to show you, and this is what we can see in these rows. And what I can show you is that despite we have three different options, in all of them, I put in red what is mandatory. In all of them, not only modules A1 to A3, so not only production, but also C and D are mandatory. So no EPD can be done in Europe without these modules, according to this standard. In addition, modules B, for example, the use stage, are optional and even mandatory in some of these configurations. Because of this, when we create the draft for the PCR of asphalt mixtures, we have to include the declaration of all these modules, to include, let's say, the instructions or the rules on how to calculate and declare all these modules, just in case that we are in the case that we have to declare them. Okay, so this is very important as well, because some comments that we received is that why we have to declare this, why this was included, we don't want this. It's like, well, this is not a decision that comes from the asphalt industry particularly. This is something given by standard 15804, and we just have to be in compliance with it. So this is a very important thing. When we talk about declaration of impacts during the use stage, which is always conflictive, we have some problems as well. So one of the things is that if we have to declare modules during the use stage, declared unit, for example, ton of asphalt, is not acceptable. It's not enough. We will need to define a functional unit. A functional unit is, for example, could be square meter of asphalt or square meter of surface layer in a highway with certain traffic conditions, made of asphalt concrete, and so on. So as you can see, we need a lot of information even to define the own unit. And this information should be given by the client if these modules are required. So for example, the type of road, the type of layer, the type of traffic, all these should be given. Another thing is the estimation of the reference service life. This is something that is very complex to obtain, to calculate, or to estimate, and it produces great impact on the declaration, on what we are declaring. Of course, it's not going to be the same, the impact that we declare per year, if the reference service life is 10 years or is 15 years. So this, as you can see, creates a lot of, it affects a lot on the impact that we are declaring. And this, that should be declared by the manufacturer, is affected by numerous conditions that are external to the manufacturer. And I put some examples here. For example, I can make the best asphalt mix in the world, but I put it in a road, we put it in a road, and maybe the year after, the administration just wants to change the layout of the road, and that could be the end of life of it. Or, for example, I can make the best asphalt mix, but if the varying capacity or the quality of the substrate or the subgrade is very bad, the durability of this mix is going to be compromised as well. Traffic loadings and so on. So all these factors are unknown and not even dependent on the manufacturer itself. But what is worse is that the manufacturer has the liability on what is declared. So the manufacturer is providing the declaration. So whatever is included in there is kind of like a legal document of what are the impacts of your product. So this is a very, I would say, confusing, delicate, and very complex situation. I would say that when we produce the draft, we play a bit with words, saying like, okay, for the case of declaration, for the case of asphalt mixes, modules B are not normally used and so, but kind of playing with words, but we cannot just remove them, or we cannot just say these modules shall not be declared, because the standard 15804 is forcing us to include them in this in the specific PCR for asphalt. So from the legal perspective, I would say, or from by seeing the system as we have it, the client has right to request the declaration of these modules. But if that's the case, and independently of if that makes sense or not, if that's the case, the client should at least provide in advance all the necessary information for that. And this is very important. All the conditions during the user stage. Now, will this happen? I put there a question mark because I don't know. And this is why we need to have all the stakeholders on the same page. We need to have a lot of communication to make sure that we all understand the system in the same way. Now, if the objective was to get the draft of the PCR for asphalt mixes, this is the document we have in the right. That was the final objective. The first attempt to get this was the APA guidance document that we published in 2017. It was a guidance document on how to prepare the PCR for EPDs of asphalt mixtures. It was a very simple document in terms of, for example, it was just focusing on modules A1 to A3, a pure cradle to gate approach, and on a declared unit ton of asphalt. The first intention was to transform this document into the standard. But what happened was that after this document, the standard 15804 that I mentioned before, the second amendment was approved. And this, as I just showed, is a document that is very complex, confusing in many aspects, I would say. And it says that A1 to A3, the modules A1 to A3, just the modules of production is not enough. At least C and D are also mandatory, and B are also possible in some cases. And also we have this conflict between declared units and functional units. So as the PCR for bituminous mixtures must be in compliance with 15804, the second amendment, the draft that we had prepared have to be redrafted in accordance. So as a result, we came up to a document, to a draft that was very complex. Again, was very similar to 15804 with the same issues. We had to include explanations for the calculations of all the modules, including modules B, C, and D. And we also have this conflict between declared unit and functional unit. When we launched this for send inquiry, and for non-European, send inquiry is the process when the draft is sent is sent to the member states, so member states can vote if they approve or not the draft, and also they can add comments. This draft failed. The draft was rejected. So this led us to the current situation that we have at the moment, and is that just a couple of months ago, the SEN committee, technical committee 227, the working group 6, which is in charge of this standard, in view of the great amount and variety of comments received during the SEN inquiry and the rejection, decided to let the current work item to lapse and restart the project as a technical specification. So a technical specification is one level lower than a European standard, and it has more, I would say, the meaning of a guidance document. So it's not like it's a standard to be used in Europe. It's more like a guidance document to take into account by countries when they are developing their own PCR. So it could be like a first step towards when they have a harmonized methodology. It was also decided to simplify the document, coming back again to the idea of the APA document from 2017, but still we will have to add things to be in compliance with 15804. This is something that we cannot skip. So the idea is to pick things from different national PCRs that we have at the moment and add it to our draft. So some national PCRs are already working well, like in the sense of they have more pragmatic approaches that, for example, give you a lot of inputs for the calculation of certain modules that are very difficult to obtain. And for example, we mentioned yesterday already that the Norwegian PCR gives you, it has already a very helpful table that gives the reference service life as a function of the traffic of the road. So if you just manage to know where the asphalt mix is going to be placed and the type of road with the traffic it has, then the reference service life can be easily obtained. We know that it's not the optimum way to do it. It's very pragmatic, it's easy, I will say, and it helps a lot to the manufacturer. So personally, I will see it as a first step to start the process. But I said that it's not the optimum because, of course, if we all pick the same reference service life, and so then why we are even doing this? Why we are even declaring this model? No? So it should be calculated better, but at the moment is very complicated. In any case, this draft that we are working on at the moment will be discussed. Hopefully, we have a first draft to be discussed in April 2021. Sorry, there is a mistake there. And as I said before, in all these discussions and so, it's very important that all stakeholders are on the same page. So we have discussions with the clients, the industrials, the researchers that at the moment are developing all the theory behind and so. And this is why it's so important that we have webinars and events like this one, where we somehow manage to put around the same table for the discussions all these stakeholders that need to decide. Okay, so this is the message that this is the situation and the message that I wanted to launch. And with this, I finish. I give you my contact details, and of course, you can ask me. And I don't know, David, if we have any questions.
Well, Breixo, not now. Not at the moment. Carsten is saying that the APA guidance document is available on the APA website.
Correct. Yeah.
But if you want, Breixo, I have something that I wanted to share. I think that it can enrich the discussion, at least provide some detail. Because I've been thinking about this, and maybe I can share my screen. Can I do it, Breixo?
Yes, 1 second, I will make you a presenter.
I just wanted to integrate what you showed, possibly giving another hint for discussion.
You should be able to do it now, David.
Let me see if I...
oh, maybe you have... Let me try again.
Yes, now I can. Okay, just give me a second. Show my screen. Can you see that?
Yes.
Sorry, I'll just take this away. So this is the table you were showing earlier. And it is true, you mentioned about this part now where allegedly we should provide C1, C4 plus D also for any product. But it's also true that here the scheme allows to have this cradle to gate with options. Yeah. So did you discuss about this one? I guess so.
The thing is that the last two options are exceptions for in certain cases. For example, when a material is installed into another material and cannot be separated anymore. So in that case, you just do the production for that, because then you should do the whole thing for the whole material, I would say. But for the case of asphalt that we are putting in a road, this is not an exception.
I have it here, actually, he's talking about this one mandatory and possibly this one option, but there is also this one. And this exemption is actually due to this part, where basically this product can be exempted if there is the first line, that is the one you just said. The product material is no longer identified at the end of life because there is a physical transformation. I guess asphalt mixture is transformed in an infrastructure component, and the product material does not contain biogenic carbon, which is really come from going downstream and see all the life cycle and the emission with an LCA. So what I'm saying is that considering that they are working possibly again on the standard, I think that there can be made an argument to allow asphalt mixture to have an exemption.
You mean because of the biogenic carbon?
No, for all three, really. Asphalt mixture, I see it as an ink for a 3D printing. Maybe some other doesn't see it like that, but I possibly see as a point to discuss this further.
I mean, in my opinion, when if you show again this paragraph.
Oh yeah.
So in my opinion, for example, bitumen, when you put it in asphalt, or an additive that you put in asphalt, is something that is physically integrated with other products during installation. So they cannot be physically separated anymore. It's not like two products like that you can separate. They are part of a mix of the same matrix, I would say. So, but asphalt, you put it on a road, on an asphalt layer, and actually you can extract it, and we do it every day. We mill it and we use it to make asphalt again. It's not integrated into something that we cannot separate.
I understand your point.
So I think that's the point. And even if so for the case of the PCR, even if this was an exception, still we will have to include the modules B and C and so, because in the standard itself, because it still is the option that the client requests that. So still we have to do that. And I'm saying this because during the same inquiry, a lot of people, a lot of comments that we received was they were against these modules, against the introduction of modules B in the standard and so. But this is not something that we decided or we just wanted to do like that. It's something that comes from higher level of hierarchy. So there's nothing that we can do in this regard, I'm afraid.
Now is the time to discuss, to make an argument. But yeah, I got your point. And
I can see I can see a question here that is related to this and says, will be 15804, the second amendment, updated in the future? Well, it will be probably because it's already the second amendment, but I don't think it will become less strict, I would say, because what we are seeing at the European level is that the direction is all the opposite. It's always more and more, in terms of sustainability and declaration of impacts and so.
Last point, Breixo, still, because I think it's good this type of discussion is, you see, there is also the chance, and I'm referring to this part, they say EPD not declaring C1, C4, and module D should provide information on where to find scenarios for the end-of-life modules. For instance, the end-of-life scenario for cement, for EPD or concrete and mortar. Possibly, it can be seen as providing end-of-life scenario for asphalt mixture that can be found on EPD of road pavement component. You know, I'm going upstream. So maybe a way could be to insist on having end-of-life modules, because I don't really see asphalt having C1, C4, D. This is my point.
For me, it's a bit of a philosophical question, because if it's a road pavement, a material itself, like a component, or is or the asphalt is, you know, like what I see this last example line that you have there. For the case of asphalt, I would say that end-of-life scenarios for bitumen can be found in the EPD for asphalt. I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, because cement is to concrete what bitumen is for asphalt. But can we consider that the final product is the pavement? Maybe we could and have a PCR for asphalt pavements instead of asphalt mixtures. But at the moment, this is what we have. So
having both. Anyway,
yes. This is part of the discussions actually, and this is part of the thoughts that we are having in the meetings and so. Yeah.
Great. Okay.